What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets powered by FTN right here on Game Plus Network. Also live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Always appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out. I know these slow moments in the sports world. I guess if you're a college basketball fan, we got you covered over at FTN. I see Mike Randall going live currently right now with the college basketball betting show. And the dude's been red hot. He's been fantastic all season long. We're getting closer and closer and closer to March Madness. This is the final day of January before we flip the calendar to February. February always rolls by pretty quickly. We have the Super Bowl, of course, to talk about here today. 3 games on the ice tonight in the NHL. The first domino fell last night when it comes to the NHL trade deadline, which is happening on March 3rd. We saw Bo Horvat get traded from the Vancouver Canucks to the New York Islanders. Going to break that trade down in just a little bit. My initial thoughts and takes, and actually I've had some time to really think about the trade. I kind of like it, from an Islanders perspective. I know it's very, very risky. I understand this team is not in a playoff spot, and they may not make the playoffs. Heck, they could trade Bo Horvat. He could get traded again in a couple weeks if this Islanders team doesn't rattle off a bunch of wins here from now until March 3rd. Doesn't normally happen. It's pretty rare to see a guy get traded twice before the deadline, but we could see it. It could certainly happen. Got some NHL picks and some props. Despite there only being 3 games, there's a lot that I like on the board here today. So we're going to share some of that stuff with you guys. We'll dive into a little bit more between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Some Super Bowl odds have changed. Not a lot, but there's been some movement, especially from a couple players that we talked about yesterday. Hurts is still favored, but it's a lot closer between Hurts and Mahomes. We saw that Travis Kelce dropped down a little bit. He was 9-1. Now he's 10-1. DeVonta Smith is now, I believe, like 22, 23, 25-1. Miles Sanders, look at this guy all over it. Thank you. It's like I'm sitting here guessing, and Quan's just like, I got it right here, dude. Hassan Reddick was the big one that we talked about yesterday, right? 50-1, now 40-1. I think worth a little bit of a sprinkle. We'll dive into that a little bit deeper when we get deeper here into the show. Mean Streets, we got some matchup boards, how these two teams match up. Got a fun little video from Quan in just a little bit. And as you see here, the Eagles are favorites here at -125, 2-point favorites, the total at 49.5. A couple intriguing storylines, of course, with these two teams, and kind of touched on them just briefly yesterday. I didn't realize how many people were complaining about the refs yesterday in both games. Like, I don't know if this is sour fans. I don't really understand. I know there was some bad calls, I think, in both games, more so, I believe, the Cincinnati and Kansas City game, but I don't know. I heard some people that I respect talk about the rule with Joseph Asai. Maybe it shouldn't have been as aggressive. He pushed him out of bounds. Like it's the rule. You know what I mean? Like, I understand it's a tough spot, and I feel for Joseph Asai. We talked about him at length yesterday. Really do feel for him. Don't be that person that's attacking him on social media or sending him death threats, because I know, like, we live in such a silly world, and social media is just ridiculous, and people will just be taking shots at these guys. I was pretty, like, I liked seeing his teammates stand with him yesterday and take some of those questions from reporters and things like that. And there's a lot of just BS questions thrown at him. How do you feel about the play at the end? How do you think he feels about the play at the end? He just basically cost his team the game. Like, how do you think? The questions, I swear, they're just so pathetic. I understand they're looking for that answer. They're looking for that headline, but come on, man, show some compassion. Like, some of these questions are just brutal. Or the question of Giovanni Bernard, the question like, "Oh, I wanted to talk to you all year, Gio, but you just been hurt." It's like, man, like, have some respect. My goodness, I know you're trying to do the job for, the job that you're asked to do, but just some of these reporters these days, I don't know, Quan. I really don't know. Daily Handle in the house. Let's go. Good afternoon means PTP. DeVonta Smith, 25-1. Oh, baby. Questions were point emoji, point emoji, point emoji. There you go. Pointing at you, looking at you with your silly question. But what are you going to do? Like, it's a tough spot for Joseph Asai. He's got to push him out. I know what he's thinking. Patrick Mahomes is trying to get those extra yards. He's trying to run forward. If you understand the out of bounds rule, you got to go forward. If you can push him back, if you can get there and find a way to push him back and keep him back, maybe that clock stops. Like, things like that. It's a fast game. You're going through some emotions. If he doesn't try to be aggressive to push him, maybe Mahomes tippy toes down the sidelines like we've seen him do so many times. It's a tough spot. I understand some people saying maybe there's some I forget the word. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but maybe like you see like run into the kicker. You kind of see like sometimes it's 15 yards, sometimes it's 5, things like that. Maybe you could go a route where it's just 5 or 10 to 15, depending on the situation. But he wasn't 15% out of bounds. Like if you look at the tape, like he was out of bounds. Like when he got shoved, he was at least 50% out of bounds. So anyways, tough call, tough way to end. There was a hold also on that play. I think people are complaining about. There was a hold that easily could have been called. It's like a 30-yard swing, right? I mean, you can go 10 yards back. Instead, you're getting the 5-yard scramble and you're getting the 15 yards as well. It was a weird way to finish the game unless you're a Chiefs fan and you're happy. But you can't change all the rules because the Chiefs win all the time. You can't do it. I liked the overtime rule being changed a couple years ago when it was Allen and Mahomes. Like that was phenomenal. Nobody wanted that game to end on a field goal. You wanted the other team to have a chance to come back and get the game tied again with the field goal. You change that rule. You can't be changing all the rules because Mahomes and company wins. I mean, again, ask me in 2 weeks when Chiefs win the Super Bowl if there's a crazy call at the end. Maybe I'll change my tune here on a Monday and I'll say that all the rules should be changed so that Mahomes and company don't win all the time. A lot to get to here on the show, NHL picks and props. We're also going to dive into the Super Bowl odds. Now, not everything is out just yet. Oh, Super Bowl props, excuse me. Not everything is out just yet. It's only a handful of books that have released like catch props for certain guys, but I wanted to show you first the props, where we could maybe find some edges on some of these players. Still waiting on a few, like in Kansas City, there's no props for any wide receivers. There's touchdown props for like MVS, but there's no receiving yard prop for MVS or catch prop. I haven't found one. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if you guys have found one or not. I know PrizePicks is really good. PrizePicks is usually all over it. They're first all the time ahead of books in terms of props and picks. We have a free PrizePicks pick tracker over at ftndaily.com. We have a free PrizePicks prop show. Comes your way basically every single day. Some NBA, NFL, NHL. It's all there for you, PGA. We also have a free PrizePicks Discord channel up at the top of ftndaily.com. We're still giving away, it's not giving away, but we're still running free day trials on both of those websites, ftndaily.com/free, ftnbets.com/free. Included in the 3-day trial, you can see everything, all our picks across all sports. You see our optimizer in the PGA, the NBA, the NFL. We have projections tools on both of those websites. We have it all there for you over at FTN Daily and FTNBets.com. But, thank you for that, Quan. Yeah, just sign up for free. I know some people have reached out to me. They want to get into maybe some DFS. They want to get into some betting. And I think the best way to do so before signing up would be just to sign up for free for those 3-day trials. And if you like what you see, you can use promo code Meaney, save yourself a little bit of cash. But over at FTNBets.com, you get everybody's picks across all sports, PGA, NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB is just around the corner here. Josh Gross is winning units in tennis, left, right, center. It's all there for you. Projections tools and a lot of tools. And then FTNdaily.com. Kenneth Lee has his DFS NHL article already up. We're calling some goals, some PrizePicks plays over there. We have cheat sheets, exposure telling you how much, the exposure to these guys, Bo Horvat, 30%. We're going to play them in 3 or 10 lineups, things like that. And of course, the Discord channels across all sports. And we're always available to answer any questions that you guys do indeed have. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to visit those props, get an early look at the props, see where we can find some edges, some touchdown props, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. It's all there for you. Dive deeper into the matchup between the Eagles and the Chiefs. Super Bowl MVP odds, NHL props, NHL picks, Bo Horvat breakdown. It's all coming your way here on Mean Streets. Keep her locked.
I can't say enough about what we've got going on over at FTNBets.com.
At FTN Bets, your bankroll can be profitable. With the FTN Bet Tracker, you can tell your favorite experts across all sports, including the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. I'm your host, Chris Meaney.
And with our premium content, you can take your bets to the next level. Only $49.99 a month. the tools the pros use at FTN. Our betting models run over 100,000 simulations of every game, with sides and totals in the NFL, the NBA, and more. Use the home run predictor to see who'll hit a bomb deep. Our NFL player projections will make you a DFS king. And the FTN Prop Shop always finds the best odds for your player props. All tools, projections, and models are powered by FTN Data.
Welcome back in. Mean Streets here live on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Our guy Quan running the show for us, producing. I have a fun segment in the future. I might have to twist Quan's arm. He's up for anything, but he's on the West Coast and he's up like fairly early to do this show, and I appreciate him. I'm thinking about a segment where it's like Wake Up with Quan, where he wakes up in the morning and he reads the news to us, like the first news, and we get of the day. Like some of us have been up for a couple hours. I'm on the other side. I'm on the far east. So there's a massive time difference between Quan and I, like 5 hours. So I'm up and I see some of the news tidbits and things like that. But I'd like to see maybe we see Quan incorporated in the show. I don't know how he's feeling about it, but I got some ideas for you, Quan. And dude, you got plenty of ideas too. Quan does a lot of great stuff for us over at FTN Networks and behind the scenes stuff, makes the shows look so pretty, runs a lot of our shows for us, and just a really cool idea here that he had. And I want to just tee it up for you guys. We mentioned yesterday with just the mayor of Cincinnati and the fun that Travis Kelce had after the game as well. We talked about, bulletin board material. And we also said that, do you really need to get motivated to win an AFC championship game, especially a rematch of last year's AFC championship game when you lost in your own turf under the bright lights on the big stage, your own building? You lost to the Bengals. You got a rematch coming up, but you can't tell me that these players don't hear the outside noise or it doesn't get them a little bit more motivated, because after the game, we saw exactly that from Travis Kelce. And let's tee this up. Quan made this video and I think it's fantastic. Wanted to share with you guys. So tee it up, Quan. Let's hear it. Let's watch.
I have a proclamation from the desk of the mayor.
Look, everybody can blame Joseph Osai, but the real villain here is the mayor of Cincinnati.
Be it proclaimed, whereas the Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Burrowhead Stadium.
Burrowhead.
See y'all in Burrowhead.
I just knew we were going to Kansas City, and it's Arrowhead, so I called my quarterback in, called it Burrowhead.
Rule number 1, never give your opponents motivation.
A lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans are calling it Burrowhead instead of
Burrowhead.
Under Burrowhead Stadium, so feeling good about it.
Did you just say Burrowhead Stadium?
Yeah, Burrowhead Stadium, right? Take care. See y'all at Burrowhead Stadium.
Whereas Joseph Lee Burrow, who's 3-0 against Mahomes, has been asked by officials to take a paternity test, confirming whether or not he's his father.
Chris Meaney hanging out with you here today as we bring up that matchup, guys. Kansas City and Cincy. This is the fourth meeting between these two quarterbacks, and Joe Burrow's been perfect. 3-0. 3-0. Did it last year in the AFC Championship game, went to Kansas City and won that game. And you know what? It wasn't all Burrow. Burrow hasn't had phenomenal playoff games. I thought yesterday was his best. He hasn't had like a lot of massive, here's 4 or 5 touchdowns. Like they've kind of squeaked out some of these wins. And again, credit to their defense, I think, ultimately. But it's all about Mahomes, right?
When it comes to 4-month-old Patrick Jr., Joe, you are not the father.
Now, therefore, I, Aftab Purval, mayor of the city of Cincinnati.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fantastic, Quan. It's just well done. I actually didn't see the baby picture. It was a quick flash. There was like a Burrow and a baby there, and I didn't really see that the first couple of times that I watched it. I'm in tears here. I love the ending, right, with Travis Kelce again. And there was another moment too where Mahomes after the game, he was getting interviewed and he came over and he was like, Burrowhead, like he wanted Burrowhead. Are you kidding me? This is our house. This is Mahomes' house. And And again, like, I agree, right? On the chalkboard, there's no real reason to be motivating. Why are the players talking about that? Did the Bengals organization approve that message from the mayor? I doubt it. I mean, it's silly if they did. I mean, you got to just give your head a shake, pal, because you never know what you're getting into. There's no need to be firing up Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. There's no need. Philly won't be doing that. Right. You even, these players, they talk about it. You could even make another one, Quan, if you wanted. Like, what did George Kittle say about the Eagles defense, a paper defense? What the heck did that mean? And if you didn't think that the Eagles didn't, take offense to that comment, I mean, they all took to Twitter yesterday, all of the Eagles. Fletcher Cox was yelling paper defense in the hall and in the tunnel heading to the locker room. He tweeted yesterday, how about that paper defense? It's all fun and games, and I do like the back and forth. I really do. I love the rivalry that has begun here, and it's just beginning between Mahomes and Burrow, and it's a rivalry that's for years to come. Thank you. Look at this, man. Are you kidding me? Look at the Patrick Mahomes. It's a little baby there, and then Joe Burrow is always reminds me of Macaulay Culkin. But yeah, it's it's the start of a rivalry. This is the start. The weekend was just one chapter. We've seen a couple chapters. This is one. These guys are going to be there. Mahomes has been to the AFC Championship game every year that he's been a starter. It's pretty remarkable. Every year that he has been a starter. The first year he started, week 17, was near the end of the season. Alex Smith didn't play in that game. And then Mahomes took over, and he's been to the AFC Championship game every year. Remarkable. And then Joe Burrow, same deal. I mean, 2 full seasons in the NFL. His first season was cut short due to a significant injury. He brings his team to the Super Bowl, became the first overall pick as a quarterback to bring his team to the Super Bowl within 2 years. Unbelievable, right? Accomplishments across both sides. But those two guys, like, a lot of talk, Josh Allen is great. Josh Allen is great. The Bills got some work to do. It's Mahomes and it's Burrow in the AFC, and that's it. You got some nice pieces in the AFC. Better quarterbacks, that's for sure, right? Than the NFC. You include Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence, and that was the first of maybe many battles between those two as well. But I think the biggest thing is you got to be careful what you say. You got to be careful what you say. These teams hear it. I saw a few years ago, I believe the Niners were playing in a playoff matchup. I don't remember who they were playing. May have been the Packers. And I think, in the dressing room, they had like a sheet of 24 experts that all picked one team. May have been from ESPN. 24 experts, and they showed it on the board. And anyways, all the 24 experts were wrong with the matchup. And they took it to, like, I don't know if it was social media at the time, but they took it to reporters, right? They let it be known that they heard what was said, and they wanted to erase or remind people, I suppose, of the nonsense that was said. They really do. New Heights, by the way, is a fantastic podcast. The Kelce brothers are just phenomenal. They're hilarious, man. They're both very in tune with the game. It's not all about the Eagles. It's not all about the Chiefs. They take shots at other teams, other players, other leagues. You saw in that clip, right? What Travis was saying to Jason, and Jason was like, "Wait, what? Burrowhead? Are you kidding me? They call it Burrowhead? That's not good. That's not good." And I know a lot of people who were on the Bengals and they heard that comment, they quickly came off of it. Now, maybe it seemed like the right call, but also like maybe a little silly to come off of something like that. But listen, it's not a good look, and I'm sure the mayor would like to take back his comments. There's no question. But New Heights is great between the Kelce brothers, and of course, this is the first Super Bowl matchup with two brothers facing each other. And Jason wore a Kansas City Chiefs jersey after the Eagles game to cheer on his brother, and he said you'd never catch him again in a jersey. Seen Travis Kelce at the link with his dad, with his mom, watching Jason in an Eagles jersey. These guys super tight. That should be fun. A fun little matchup. And the biggest storyline for me is Andy Reid. And Quan, you can get into the boards that we have. I know you brought up the matchup board, but we also have some statistics as well as these two teams, how they match up between each other. And some statistics using Football Outsiders. You see the rush percentage and the pass percentage. That's a tool over FTN Daily, FTNFantasy.com. That's neutral script situations within a touchdown, tie game, within a touchdown, basically a one-score game. The Eagles are a run-first team, and I think we saw that firsthand last week, right? It was strength on strength, And, Lane Johnson is just an absolute monster. The guy gave zero pressure, zero quarterback hits. Jason Kelce's out there, smashing Nick Bosa. Mailata's smashing Nick Bosa. They held Nick Bosa in check the entire game. No issues at all with their offensive line. It's the best in football, and they proved it again against the 49ers. And this is a team that likes to run the football. And, yeah, the game script kind of accounted over the last 2 weeks for the Eagles to run the football. But they're the best rushing football team in the NFL, and they will run down your throats. And Nick Sirianni is stubborn. He says, listen, what we do really well is run the football. You may stop the run really well, but what we do a better job of running the football than you do at stopping the run. And we saw that. We really did. We saw over 140 rushing yards. They stuck with it. It didn't look great early on. They were getting stuffed. Jalen Hurts didn't have his best game. Say what you want about the DeVonta Smith catch. It wasn't a catch. Maybe it's not a touchdown. They still put up 31 points against the best defense in football. And they ran the ball down their throats in the second half of that game with Kenneth Gainwell. Some runs from Miles Sanders, some runs from Jalen Hurts. Man, he took a shot where I was like, dude, stop running. I don't know how many more design runs there are going to be for Jalen Hurts after he took that massive shot. And you could see him just kind of his face, and he's like, looked like he was in a lot of pain. But then he ran the ball like 4 or 5 more times and ends up getting a rushing touchdown. But you look at the left, what the Eagles do. DVOA offense, number 3, pass, number 9, 389 yards per game was the third best mark in football. 241 passing yards per game is top 10. The rushing inside the top 5, and points per game, they're number 3. This is the third matchup of all time. The number 1 pass offense versus the number 1 pass defense. You see on the right, the Chiefs checked a lot of boxes, right? Points per game, number 1. Yards per game, passing yards per game, pass DVOA, total DVOA offense, according to Football Outsiders, number 1. Number 1 in EPA per dropback, number 1. They didn't miss a beat without Tyreek Hill. Didn't miss a beat. This offense was actually better, but there's some questions heading in. MVS, as we talked about earlier, the only guy that I can see a prop for, and it's just a touchdown prop in our prop shop. We don't know if Juju Smith-Schuster is playing. Kadarius Toney has been hurt almost every single week since he's entered the league. Those two guys are key. Who's going to be able to step up? Sky Moore, bunch of targets over the weekend. Didn't do anything really with those targets. It can't just be all Travis Kelce. It can't, not against this secondary. Let's look at how they match up defensively. There's going to be a big difference here, as what I said last week when I dove into the Chiefs and the Bengals, and I did get that game wrong. I thought Cincinnati was going to win that game. I thought they were going to win it because of their defense. Look at the difference between these two squads. For the iTunes podcast listeners, total DVOA defense for the Chiefs, 17th, 20th against the pass, 15th against the run, a 65.9 completion percentage against, 22nd in the NFL, 4.4 yards per carry allowed in the NFL. It's a middle of the pack. It's not great. Not great at all, especially how the Eagles just went against the best run defense and had success running the football. 33 passing touchdowns allowed this season, the most in football. I understand Kansas City pushes the pace. They score a lot of points, the most points in the NFL per game this year. So teams are throwing on them, trying to play catch up. So some of those numbers slightly skewed, but they still allowed the most passing touchdowns this season. On the other side of the Eagles, DVOA defense, according to Football Outsiders, number 6, number 1 against the pass, 21st against the run. So that is their Achilles heel. They have struggled to stop the run, but when they're fully healthy, they've done a great job, especially over the last couple of weeks. At full health, 5.5 yards per pass attempt, number 1 in football. 4.6 yards per carry. Not great. 24th, as we just alluded to, the rush defense, and then only 22 passing touchdowns allowed, and then 20.2 points per game allowed. So a fascinating matchup between these two teams. The early lean for me really is the Eagles, and I know you guys are going to take that with a grain of salt because I am rocking the hat, and I totally get that. If I wanted more credibility, I wouldn't rock the hat, but then you'd see the flow, and then you'd be like, listen, I can't take any advice from this guy with that hair. Are you kidding me with that crap? Maybe we'll get a cut soon. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just let it grow for weeks and for weeks and for weeks and for weeks. But the difference for me right now at this moment is that pass rush. It's the pass rush. It's the line of scrimmage. It's the offensive line. It's the defensive line. That's where football games are dominated, and that's where the Eagles have dominated. And I understand they played some just poor quarterbacks. They played some awful quarterbacks. They played some awful teams this year, but they can get pressure on the quarterback. We saw it firsthand, and I understand that Niners fans are a little upset. He beat the third string quarterback. He beat the fourth string quarterback, but the pass rush was the key to the game for me. And they got after Purdy early, knocked him out of the game. First drive, got after him, knocked him out of the game. Johnson didn't stand a chance, but they got pressure on him as well. That's why we talked about Hassan Reddick as a potential sneaky long shot. If we can bring up the MVP odds just one more time here. And still going to see your question. We'll get into some props and some long shot TDs. We'll get into that stuff here very, very, very soon. Next segment. Jalen Hurts now the favorite at plus 110. Mahomes plus 130. Travis Kelce 10-1. AJ Brown 10-1. Miles Sanders 22-1. DeVonta Smith 25-1. Isaiah Pacheco at 35-1. Chris Jones, who we saw in that clip, who had a big game, a couple sacks, a key sack near the end of that game as well, right? Burrowhead. He brought his best game and the biggest moment for him. The biggest sack that he's had in his NFL career. Hassan Reddick at 40-1 and Jerick McKinnon at 50-1. I still think Hassan Reddick is a pretty decent long shot at these odds. We've seen, Von Miller comes to mind, defensive players. It certainly could happen. Hassan Reddick has 19.5 sacks now. Hassan Reddick is, I think, 2 sacks, 1.5 sacks away, I think, from passing the all-time record in Philadelphia for the most sacks of all time. That, of course, is stood by the great Reggie White. Yeah, he's 1.5 sacks shy of the franchise mark. You got to give credit here to Howie, to what he's done. But for Reddick, 19.5 sacks. It doesn't matter what you've done to this point. He's going to have to show up in the Super Bowl, but 2 sacks against the 49ers, 3 tackles, forced fumble, had a recovery in there. Mahomes, it showed when the game was on the line, he was willing to dive, to battle through some of the pain, break out left and throw the ball on that right ankle, scramble for the 5 yards, get pushed out of bounds, seal the game. He's going to have some mobility, and he's going to have to because the offensive line is going to bring it. 4 guys with double-digit sacks. They're just a couple sacks away from the most sacks ever in a season. And I do believe Hassan Reddick, as a Philly boy, played in Temple, back, in his hometown, wanted to sign there. He's been a difference maker for the Eagles. And I do want to give a little bit of love to Howie Roseman. And we'll be giving love to all these teams. We'll be breaking it down for a couple weeks. We'll have different people come in here and give their take on who they think is going to win. And there's lots of different storylines here, but I do believe, for me personally, I'd like to give a little bit of love to Howie Roseman because this is the first team to go to 2 Super Bowls within a 5-year span with 2 different head coaches and 2 different quarterback combos. Just 5 years ago, the Eagles fired Doug Peterson. They parted ways with Carson Wentz. They drafted Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. Everybody laughed at them, thought, what the heck are they doing? Oh, it's a quarterback factory. That's what was said. It's a quarterback factory in Philly. What are they doing here with Jalen Hurts? They spent all this capital on Carson Wentz. Right? Fired Andy Reid. They fired Andy Reid years ago. Then they fired Doug Peterson after winning a Super Bowl, got rid of the quarterback coach, and in 2 years as a full-time starter for Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl, and Nick Sirianni head coach. But it's not just that, as we break here in just a second. It's bringing Hassan Reddick through free agency, and maybe that was a layup because he wanted to go home, right? Sometimes that happens. John Tavares with the Leafs, he wants to go home, didn't have to do too much to twist his arm. He's playing in front of his fans, and that's after the fumble recovery, he got on the bench and started yelling, "This is my city, my city, my city." Hassan Reddick, how about AJ Brown? How about the trade for AJ Brown? Can't nail a wide receiver in a draft for the life of him. I mean, DeVonta kind of fell to him, but really, he hasn't been able to draft wide receivers. He's missed on a lot over the years, passed on Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Adams, Tyler Lockett. The list goes on for Nelson Aguilar, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Jordan Matthews. The list goes on and on. How many wide receivers he's missed in the draft. He makes the big trade for AJ Brown, most yards all time for a wide receiver in Eagles franchise history. Shores up the secondary opposite of Darius Slay with James Bradbury. Brings in Linval Joseph, Ndamukong Suh halfway through the season to kind of shore up the run game. CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? Just steals him from the Saints. I think it says more about the Saints and how they evaluate players as opposed to the Eagles, but he leads the NFL in interceptions. It's across the board. It's been move after move after move, and Howie Roseman has done a hell of a job here, and that's why we were on the Eagles. Missed on Justin Jefferson. Absolutely missed on Justin Jefferson for Nelson Aguilar, or not Nelson Aguilar, for Oh my goodness, why can't I even remember his name? Oh wow, this is because I want to forget his name. That's why. Jalen Reagor. To be fair, a lot of teams missed on Justin Jefferson, right? CeeDee Lamb stud. Jerry Jeudy over Justin Jefferson. Jalen Reagor for sure. Big Henry Ruggs, huge All right. A lot of people miss, no excuses, but he has missed on a lot of wide receivers. But bringing in some of these guys, and that's why, as a show, we were in on Philly at plus 260 to win the division. We were in on them to win the Super Bowl. We have the bet in the bet tracker in August at 28-1. You want to hedge? Now's the time to hedge. You certainly could do it. It's not going to be easy against Mahomes and company, but the way that this wide receiver room in KC is shaping up right now, it's pretty depleted, and Mahomes is not 100%. And again, the difference to me, in my opinion, is the defense. As we mentioned on the show, they're better at all facets, all over the place, except for the tight end and the quarterback position and head coach, which is those are two of the probably the most important positions, quarterback and head coach. So love to hear your guys' thoughts early as well, what the early leans that you guys have as well. We're going to take a quick break. We went a little long there, but we do have some Super Bowl props that I wanted to share with you guys. And Stuart, we'll get into some long shots, TD thoughts as well here on Mean Street. So continuing the talk when it comes to the Chiefs and the Eagles, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
At DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bet on nearly any sport imaginable. The NFL, the NBA, college football, college basketball, golf, the NHL, tennis, Major League Baseball, MMA, and more. Download the DK Sportsbook app on iOS and Android operating systems, as well as on your desktops or in mobile browsers. Get the best bonuses using promo code FTN. Remember, the only way to gamble responsibly is to win. PrizePicks is a creative new way to parlay picks based on expected fantasy point production and single stat projections. You pick 2 to 5 players and predict if they'll go over or under their projected fantasy point total or their single stat total. When parlaying the players, the larger your parlay, the better the payout. A 2-pick entry pays 3x. A 3-pick entry pays 5x. A 4-pick entry pays 10x. As a bonus offer, there's a flex play option. This provides an added level of security on your entry where you can decrease your multiplier received if you miss one of your entries but hit on all the others. At FTN, we have PrizePicks coverage for every sport in both article and standalone pick format on our PrizePicks pick tracker. Use promo code FTN for a 100% deposit match on your first deposit of up to $100.
Welcome back in. AS in the house. Meaney! Exclamation mark. You. I guess I am, right? I'm certainly coming across as a meanie when it comes to the KC fans. You bring up a good point. I am not overlooking the Hurts injury. Heading into the playoffs, I did have the Niners to go to the Super Bowl because I thought the injury was significant. Now, their defense did enough, and they were put into situations, unfortunately. You know, if you're a Niners fan, Purdy getting knocked out of that game, they didn't really need Hurts to throw the football in either of those last 2 games. I think there's only 2 teams. I know for a fact that the first team since the 2000 Ravens to allow like just 14 points in their first 2 games, right? They haven't really been tested. And I did see him run. Listen, Hurts is definitely dealing with something. He's probably going to have some offseason surgery. I mean, Mahomes may too. Who knows? But he's clearly, I could see it. I could see it in some of his throws. He certainly missed a couple throws, and I could see it in his face. But he did take some shots, and he still ran after that. It's still like 5 or 6 runs after that. You know, he is battling through all of this, but ultimately the Eagles are going to run the football in Kansas City, and they're going to run the football really well against them. They run the football well against everybody in the league. So that's going to be the key for Philly. We've seen KC struggle against mobile quarterbacks. Josh Allen has run all over them in the past. it will be to what you do against Kansas City. I mean, this is the recipe for success. We've seen it, and it's kind of the other way around how you beat the Eagles too. Keep the offense off the field. They will exploit you any way that they feel like, you could be exploitable. Is that a word? We just made it one. If you can't stop the run, they're going to run on you. And they ran on San Fran. They really did. They felt like they could run on San Fran. They stuck with it. That's going to be the key to the game, I think, is running the clock down like they did against San Fran, using multiple backs like they do, and having Jalen Hurts with the RPOs and the quarterback design runs to move them up and down the field. And if they do get into a bit of a shootout, they got the weapons on the other side, I think, to keep pace. So it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. But I tell you what, AS, you're going to have somebody step up. MVS is not going to be torching that secondary with 100+ yards. This is not going to happen. You're going to have a healthy Juju. You're going to have a healthy Kadarius Toney. Somebody else is going to have to step up, right? A lot of attention is going to be on, certainly is going to be on Travis Kelce in this matchup. But look at his yards thrown. It's way down. He almost missed open receivers. It is. His yards are down, and we can bring up the quarterback props here as we get into it. It's a good segue to kind of dive into it. But he hasn't need to throw the football. When you're up 30 points, you don't need to throw the football. What are you throwing the football for? You don't need to, right? You run the clock out. They haven't allowed any points. It's just run. But here's the quarterback props, and you can see, 241 passing yards for Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts' last few games, $121, $154, 229 in that Week 18 game. He's only surpassed this number. I mean, he only has 2 300-yard games over his last dozen games. Early in the year, I mean, he had a 340-yard game against Washington where he torched the Commanders for 3 touchdowns. And then you can't find another 300-yard game until the one against Tennessee, where it was a tough run defense, and they decided just to exploit the secondary. And I mean, the Titans secondary is awful, and he had 380 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. I'm not crazy about this number 241. I kind of have a lean to the under. I have a lean to the under passing touchdowns. I have a lean to the under on passing attempts as well. His last couple games, 25 attempts, 24 attempts. Now, with that said, he is going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs are going to be the best team that the Eagles have faced all year, the best quarterback that the Eagles have faced all year. I'm not denying that. There's no question that's the case. I have a lean to the over 284 passing yards for Mahomes. This is a number that he's cleared comfortably over the past few games. I mean, last week, 326 passing yards against Denver, 328. He's got a bunch of 300-yard passing games on his resume. He's got one against the very same Titans where Hurts torched the Titans secondary. Mahomes didn't have a great game in that contest. Only 1 passing touchdown, had a pick, but he did have 446 passing yards. That was the start of back-to-back 400-yard games against first San Fran and then Tennessee. The game against San Fran, much better. He threw the ball 68 times against the Titans for 446 yards. But there's a lot here that I like on the right. I like taking a shot. You want a long shot touchdown? I mean, 6-1. This just goes to show our prop shop is fantastic. I see some books out there at 3-1, plus 320, 4-1, 6-1. I forget exactly where it's from. I'll bring it up here in a second. BetMGM, prop shop, 6-1. This is the difference. I see plus 300, plus 325, plus 475, plus 500, plus 525. BetMGM 6-1, right? It saves you not only some time, but some cash as well, and you get the best possible odds. That's a long shot bet, but 2 weeks to heal the ankle. Clearly, he can run when the game is on the line. He showed that against the Bengals. I think that's a decent little long shot touchdown at 6-1. I think Jalen Hurts finds the end zone as well, and I like the over on his 45.5 rushing yards. I tried to give you guys the best odds and the best number. For the most part, the odds are the same. Now, the odds that you guys see on the board is for the over. I'm an overs guy, but the under is basically the same as well, like minus 115 over 32.5 attempts, minus 115 under 32.5 attempts. So there's not a lot of difference when it comes to the over and the under. The biggest, I think, maybe long shot, and is it even a long shot? How about Mahomes? 2.5 passing touchdowns at plus 160 for Patrick Mahomes. Now, only 2 in each of the first 2 games in the playoffs. We know that he could do it. We know he could toss one to Kelce. We know that he maybe can hit one of his wide receivers as well, multiple tight ends sometimes in the red zone with some of the trickery. Jerick McKinnon, 9 receiving touchdowns this season. Most books have Patrick Mahomes juiced to the over 1.5 passing touchdowns. DraftKings minus 215. Bet Rivers minus 215. FanDuel minus 220 for 2 passing touchdowns. This one here is from PointsBet over 2.5 plus 160. I think that's a decent long shot bet there. But I do believe we will see the Eagles run the football. That's what they do best. That's their identity. They're the best rushing football team in the NFL over the past 2 seasons. Slow the pace down, keep Mahomes off the field. And if they do get into a bit of a shootout, that's when maybe we see Jalen Hurts take some shots down the field with maybe one of his 2 wide receivers or Dallas Goedert there in the middle of the field. But a slight lean to the under passing yards for Jalen Hurts, over passing yards for Patrick Mahomes, the rushing touchdown for Patrick Mahomes, the over rushing yards for Jalen Hurts, and the over 2.5 touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes. A little bit of a sprinkle on that one. I do believe we'll see some points in this game. It should be highly entertaining. We're going to take another quick break and we'll turn the page on quarterbacks. We will dive, like later on in the week, we'll hammer home some of these props, but there are a couple that I have in the bet tracker and 2 that I will share with you next on the other side of the break.
At DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bet on nearly any sport imaginable. The NFL, the NBA, college football, college basketball, golf, the NHL, tennis, Major League Baseball, MMA, and more. Download the DK Sportsbook app on iOS and Android operating systems, as well as on your desktops or in mobile browsers. Get the best bonuses using promo code FTN. Remember, the only way to gamble responsibly is to win. PrizePicks is a creative new way to parlay picks based on expected fantasy point production and single stat projections. You pick 2 to 5 players and predict if they'll go over or under their projected fantasy point total or their single stat total. When parlaying the players, the larger your parlay, the better the payout. A 2-pick entry pays 3x. A 3-pick entry pays 5x. A 4-pick entry pays 10x. As a bonus offer, there's a flex play option. This provides an added level of security on your entry where you can decrease your multiplier received if you miss one of your entries but hit on all the others. At FTN, we have PrizePicks coverage for every sport in both article and standalone pick format on our PrizePicks pick tracker. Use promo code FTN for a 100% deposit match on your first deposit of up to $100.
Welcome back in here. The pass catchers, wide receivers mostly, and Travis Kelce in there as well. We're looking at Super Bowl props here on Mean Streets on Game Plus Network. Use a prop shop to get the best possible odds. I've tried to do that for you already. Again, not a lot of books have like catch props out yet. We're still waiting on KC numbers. We don't have anything yet because there's just a lot of question marks with the wide receiver room. MBS to see a touchdown prop for him, but AJ Brown at 70.5 receiving yards. Again, this is the over on all of these guys. 5.5 receptions for AJ Brown plus 102, touchdown plus 126 for DeVonta Smith. 63.5 receiving yards minus 114 for the over. Again, very similar. The unders a very similar price. 5.5 receptions at minus 102. That's from FanDuel. It's the only place I could see catch props receptions as of right now. Touchdowns plus 180. Dallas Goedert 45.5 receiving yards, catch at 4.5 receptions minus 108, touchdown plus 200. And then Travis Kelce. This is one that I already put in the bet tracker, the over 75.5 receiving yards. I did it in the super wild card round. Actually, I lies. He didn't play. I did it in the last 2 games for Travis Kelce. I did it in the divisional round and the championship round. I had Travis Kelce. In fact, you can go back to Travis Kelce and just look at the playoff. These are the playoff games for Travis Kelce. 7 catches, 78 yards. So he topped it in that game. Against the Jags, 14 for 98 yards. Topped in that game. Let's go to 2021 playoff games. Against the Bengals in the Super Bowl, 10 grabs, 95 yards. Did it in that one. Against the Bills that was in the Super Bowl. What am I doing? The championship game against the Bengals, he was 10 for 95. Against the Bills, 8 for 96. Against the Steelers, He had 108 receiving yards, just the 5 grabs. So, I mean, quick math, that's 5 straight games where he's topped this receiving yard number. Then to 2020 against the Cleveland Browns. 8 grabs, 109 yards. Against the Bills, 13 grabs, $118. 2 touchdowns, 118 yards. And also in the Super Bowl, 10 grabs, 133 yards. This guy, he has cleared this number almost every single playoff game he has played. He is a walking money maker. Travis Kelce over 75.5 receiving yards, minus 125 over at PointsBet. There's some 76.5 if you don't like that price, but I like to pay a little bit more to get that number. Remember, we had the over 76.5 last week, and he just had 78. I think he probably gets double-digit targets in this game. I have a lean to the over. It's a lot of catches, but I do like the over receiving yards at minus 125, and I do think he scores. It's negative odds, but I do think he scores. And my touchdown call here would be DeVonta Smith. I still like Smith. I think last week was a little bit of an outlier game as well for DeVonta. He only had the 2 grabs on 3 targets. He did lead the way for the Eagles with 36 receiving yards, but for the most part, this guy's been a walking 8-target machine, and I do like him to eclipse actually all 3 of those numbers, 63.5, 5.5 catches, and I like him to find the end zone as well. He's been more involved in the red zone down the stretch, DeVonta Smith. We're going to take another break, and we're going to take a look at running backs as well. There's a lot of appealing options here at the running back position. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Welcome back in. I'm already seeing odds change. That's why I wanted to bring it up early to you guys, and just give you my favorites. And I think the Kelce one's going to change even more. Like the 76.5, I don't even see it anymore. It's like 77.5. See like some 80s. I think that's why I wanted to present it to you guys now. Let's jump on board. Let's get them locked in now before these odds change. We're going to have 2 Super Bowl shows coming your way at FTN Network tomorrow evening. We will have one, and then we'll have a big one next Thursday with Jeff Ratcliffe, myself, Mike Randall, Taylor Mathis. We will have Benny Ricciardi. We'll hit up everything Super Bowl related, some fun props. We'll do everything. We'll touch everything for you guys. Let's bring up running backs before we kind of close the door on the NFL for today. You see a lot here on the board. I can't find a Pacheco catch prop for the life of me. Maybe when we get closer, we can find one. I mean, he's coming off a game with 5 targets, 6 grabs for 59 yards. This is what I thought we would see last week with Jerick McKinnon. I thought we'd see some checkdowns, some catches. We saw them more from Pacheco than we saw from Jerick McKinnon. Pass rush is significant. Already talked about it at length for the Eagles, so I do believe maybe we see some more McKinnon just to protect and keep Mahomes' upright, I think is going to be very key to slow down that pass rush. I got to lean here to the over on Miles Sanders at 55.5 rushing yards. He didn't top this last week. He only had 42 on 11 carries, but it was a tougher matchup, and they did, run out the clock in that game. So I'm a little hesitant to get involved with Kenneth Gainwell, even though he's been really good in these 2 playoff games. He's gotten some run, 12 for $112 and a touchdown, 1 catch for 9 receiving yards. That was against the Giants, and then 14 for 48 against the Niners, 2 catches for 26 yards. So you see the receiving yard prop plus money, and then you see the 5.5 rushing attempts. And there's also a prop for him. It's like 40.5 rushing plus receiving. I'm a little hesitant to jump on board with him, but I do like Miles Sanders in this game. I think that they will lean on the run game with these backs, with Jalen Hurts. I like the over Jalen Hurts rushing yards as well, as I alluded to earlier. But Miles Sanders, the attempt is a little bit risky, but I got him for 14 carries in this game. I'm not going to touch the receiving yard prop, but I do like the touchdown at plus 123, and I like the over 55.5 rushing yards, right? I think, use your strength, try to keep Mahomes and company off the field, slow the pace down, run the rock. With that offensive line and Lane Johnson and Kelce and Mailata, man, they just open up so many holes, and it could happen for Miles Sanders. He's had some big, long runs this season, Miles Sanders. I mean, I'm just looking at the game log here. 24, 35, 21, 25, 28, 40, 18, 14 in the playoffs, 18 and 13 long runs. He really only needs 10 carries to get to this. He's basically like a 5.3 yard per carry back over the course of his career. And that's, in large part due to the offensive line. I think McKinnon is an interesting long shot touchdown as well at plus 195. I do believe he's going to be more involved. I went down the McKinnon route just last week, and it didn't work out well for me. But I do like the 20.5 receiving yard prop. It's a little bit juiced there at minus 125. We'll do some long touchdown calls maybe tomorrow, but the long shots would be, as I mentioned, Mahomes at 6-1, maybe Kenneth Gainwell at plus 390 or Boston Scott at plus 450. I think MVS at plus 240, just given the state of Tony and Juju, I think are interesting long shots as well. Quez, I suppose, at plus 650, maybe a deep shot for Quez. But as I mentioned, yesterday and last week, he's not getting a ton of run, right? It's been more Zach Pascal on the field because he's a better run blocker. And we've seen, the numbers come down because of Dallas Goedert's return to the lineup. So that's it for now. Props, hopefully a couple takeaways. Any questions, reach out at Chris Meaney. One more break here. We're going to dive into some NHL props for tonight and also break down the Bo Horvat trade to the New York Islanders. That after the break on Mean Streets.
I can't say enough about what we've got going on over at FTNBets.com.
At FTN Bets, your bankroll can be profitable. With the FTN Bet Tracker, you can tell your favorite experts across all sports, including the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. I'm your host, Chris Meaney.
And with our premium content, you can take your bets to the next level. Only $49.99 a month. Use the tools the pros use at FTN. Our betting models run over 100,000 simulations of every game, with sides and totals in the NFL, the NBA, and more. Use the home run predictor to see who'll hit a bomb deep. Our NFL player projections will make you a DFS king. And the FTN Prop Shop always finds the best odds for your player props. All tools, projections, and models are powered by FTN Data.
3 games on the ice tonight in the NHL. I just want to revisit the Bo Horvat trade. It was a little bit of a surprise. I think we all knew Bo Horvat was going to get traded from the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, they're a bloody mess. They probably should have parted ways with JT Miller last year instead of re-upping with him and actually go for the full-on rebuild. I'm sure we'll see a couple more moves to follow. An interesting trade. I don't really mind it from the Vancouver side. I mean, you get that protected 2023 first round pick. It's top 12 protected. If the pick happens to land inside the top 12, you'll get the Islanders first round pick next year. Anthony Beauvillier is a fine player. He's never had 40 points though, and I don't really love his contract. And Atu Ratti's an okay prospect. The Islanders don't have a great prospect pool, so you hear that they got the best prospect from New York. You take that with a grain of salt, but I do like the move for the Islanders. It was just a little puzzling because they're not in a playoff spot. They're 3 points out. They played more games than anybody, but this is exactly what the Islanders needed. They needed some offensive firepower. They have the second worst power play in the NHL. Bo Horvat, as you see there, 31 goals. He's 1 goal away from his career high. He is shooting a career high 21.7 shooting percent, and the Islanders don't play to the same up-tempo pace as the Canucks. We could see him kind of fall off. I do believe he's going to live in that mid-40 range at the, in terms of goals when it's all said and done. The key here is 28 power play points. He's going to help the power play. They're deep down the middle. Maybe they move Barzal to the wing. They got Brock Nelson as their second line center. John Gabriel Pajot as their third line center. This is what the Islanders needed, but keep in mind, this is a rental. It's an expiring contract. March 3rd is the trade deadline. If the Islanders aren't in a playoff spot by March 2nd, do they flip Bo Horvat? Does he get traded again to another team? It's a little bit of a risk for Lou to take this on. He's shipped off several first-round picks over the past couple of years. He really has. I mean, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. He shipped off all of these first picks. Are there more moves to come? If I was an Islanders fan, I'd be waiting for more moves. You got to make some more moves. You got to go all in here. Clearly, you're in. But if you lose Bo Horvat through free agency and you didn't make the playoffs, this is a complete loss. I would grade this as an F, but I like the aggressiveness from Lou to go for it. Let's see if there's another move, maybe a Tarasenko or something like that. Tonight, 3 games on the ice in the NHL. I'm leading with an assist prop here, and it's Claude Giroux of the Ottawa Senators. He is plus 130 to pick up an assist. That from FanDuel. I also put the shot prop in here just because, he's checking in red hot. He's got 4 goals and 8 points over a current 4-game streak. He's got 10 shots over his last 2 games. He has an assist in 4 straight games and 5 of his past 6. The Canadians are dirty. They've taken more penalties than anybody in the league. Claude Giroux has a power play in 3 straight power play point, that is, in 3 straight games. They just beat up on the Habs 5-0 at home on Saturday. I like Claude Giroux to pick up an assist here tonight, and a couple other props that I like for this evening. I like his line mate, Alex DeBrincat, to score a goal. I like Tim Stützle to have 3 shots. He had 4 shots the other night against the Canadians. I got Brady Tkachuk in a shot prop parlay with Sebastian Aho, who has 13 shots in his last 2 games, and Aho has cleared 2.5 shots in 7 of his past 8, so that's why that's into a little bit of a parlay at plus 174. TJ Oshie to pick up a point, also plus 200 for an assist. Teuvo Teravainen to pick up a point, also plus money for an assist. I got Boone Jenner for over 2.5 shots. My goal scorers tonight, Ovechkin, DeBrincat, Seth Jarvis, also like for a point. Little sprinkle on the assists, but plus 350 to score a goal on that top line tonight for the Hurricanes. And Marchenko up on the top line for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's yet to pick up an assist. He's got 13 goals on the season. I like him for a goal tonight as well. Good luck on the ice. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.